Firstly, thank you for the kind words from Suma. Suma and I and her brother have worked together for a number of years in the sports industry across multiple projects, and we've always enjoyed a very good and successful working relationship, although we do come from very different extremes. As a little bit about myself, my name's Campbell Jamieson. I am not an academic. Yes, so I'm involved at Deakin University, but I'm not an academic, and I'll explain part of why Deakin engaged me at the university shortly. I'm also not a tech expert. I've never delved into any form of qualifications in technology or any aspects of tech. Yes, I've used it, as we all have. I've used it personally, and I've used it in sport. From an employment perspective, I've used it. What I do bring to you today is 30 plus years of experience of working in the sports industry. I was in effect one of the, I use the term guinea pigs, one of the first people employed at a number of organisations that I've worked at in sporting organisations. I was the 9th person employed at Cricket Australia. Cricket Australia is the governing body for cricket in Australia. It has over 500 employees today. Some 30 plus years ago, I was the 9th. I was also employed at the International Cricket Council, and I'll talk a little bit about that. I was the 4th person employed at the International Cricket Council. They currently have hundreds of people that work at the International Cricket Council throughout the world. So I was sort of at the forefront, or the very beginning of the professionalism of the sporting industry. And I'll try to bring some insights to this discussion today, not from an academic or a technology perspective, but from a sports industry perspective and what it needs from a human element, from technology, and also from people to be able to deliver on that and understand that technology. A little bit more about me. I was born in Melbourne, Australia, grew up there. Literally from day one of my life, I've been passionate about sport. Sport's been the one driving factor that's kept me going. I followed it, played it, did everything I possibly could to be involved in sport. Every minute, I've been to multiple sporting events throughout the world as part of my roles with International Cricket Council and in work, and also as a passionate sports fan. I'm not sure there's too many major global sporting events that I haven't been to. Like a lot of people, I wanted to be a professional sportsman. Unfortunately, I wasn't good enough. And I realised that when I was about 18, when I left secondary school, and I thought to myself, well, I'm passionate about sport. I'm probably not good enough to be a professional sportsman and to earn a living out of it. So how am I going to keep doing what I'm passionate about for the rest of my life? So what I did, I went and took myself off and did, at the time, we're talking about in the late 80s, the only sort of qualification you could actually undertake in sport was to basically be a PE teacher and do a Bachelor of Applied Sciences, which what I did is my first degree in physical education, with this sort of great aspiration that I'd leave the university and then go and be a PE teacher and continue my dream and be involved in sport for the rest of my working life. I took a twist at that particular turn and realised that the sporting world was opening up from a professional element, from a management perspective. And again, this is in the late 1980s. So I started at the Cricket Australia as the commercial manager at Cricket Australia. At the same time, Deakin University decided, the people at Deakin decided that the sports industry was growing and was going to be a real industry employing real people and be professional. And they put together a Bachelor of Commerce in Sports Management. This is back in the late 1980s, of which they ran back then. It's been going for 30 plus years. So they had a Bachelor of Commerce in Sports Management. I undertook that 6-year part-time degree whilst I was working as the commercial manager of the International Cricket Council. From there, I went to the ISACE and became the commercial director of what is, the world's second largest sport, cricket. For those of you that don't know cricket, it is literally the second largest sport in the world behind football. We are very privileged and fortunate to have the Asian subcontinent as the passionate arm of the sport of cricket. and more than 1.4 billion people in India that only follow one sport. They don't follow anything else. If anyone says, oh, there's football and this, it's minuscule percents that follow football and other sports in India as compared with cricket. So when we talk about large numbers of people watching the Euros final this weekend and others, when India plays cricket, the numbers are hundreds of multiples greater than any other sport, apart from Football World Cup anywhere in the world. So I had the fortune of spending 35 years as the commercial director of the International Cricket Council. Under my remit was everything from event management to marketing to promotion to digital to television production to exploiting the commercial rights. So it was the full broad spectrum of commercial related activities to do with sport. I left the International Cricket Council in the middle of 2020, middle of COVID, and decided to head back to Melbourne. And having spent 35 years in the sports industry, I thought to myself, where is it going to go next? So I decided to take myself back to Deakin University, and I wanted to offer the university my experiences that I had obtained over 35 years from the sports industry to actually start to work with the university in relation to how it educated and provided talent for the industry for the future. Deakin took me on as a role. I have a professorship with Deakin in sports, based on my practical experience in the industry. My role at Deakin is actually to help them ensure that they're ready and creating a workforce ready to deal with the sports industry moving forward. What I also did from between 2020 and now, as Masuma alluded earlier, I decided to engage myself with a number of sports tech companies. So over the course of the last 4 years, I've been either had advisory roles or board positions with companies like Sports Radar, Big Ant Studios, with TV Canal, with YouGov Sport, with Interact Sport, multiple different organisations that operate in the sports technology space. And that's given me great insights to be able to stand up and provide some information that I'm going to provide you today. So I come really from a industry knowledge perspective and also a university perspective in relation to how they're producing talent, but also with a great knowledge on what the tech industry is doing in relation to providing technology to assist the growth of sport. I don't understand technology and how it works and how you achieve. You are all the experts in that. I'm certainly not. I use your technology or advise companies what sort of technology should be used in the sporting world and how that can help sport. What I also do at Deakin University, I often stand up and do some guest lectures and talks on different subjects, mainly relation to sport, but different areas of sport. What I personally prefer to do is to throw up a slide without any detail on it, and then to sit back and engage and discuss. Now, I'm not going to do that today, but at the end of my session, there will be an opportunity to ask questions and to have a discussion and debate in relation to some of the areas that I throw up, or any other areas that you want to talk about. I'm very happy to discuss and debate them. So that's about me. What I am going to talk to you about today is about how we're empowering the future for sport. So the workforce requirements, right, that are required by the sports industry and the tech industry to drive this growth that with all this great technology is providing. That's what I'm going to talk to you about. And I'm going to talk to you about it from a perspective of a sports industry, so it's a rights holder's perspective. Just wanted to start with talking about sport and the global, and I think it's a good sort of start to the presentation. I was saying the global transition of the sports industry. 30 years ago, we had these World Cups, Euros, Cricket World Cups, IPLs, EPLs, other leagues, and they're all very much home leagues. They're big in the countries where they're hosted and maybe the surrounding countries, but that's basically where they started and finished. That has all evolved and changed over 30 years. Those events such as the IPLs, the EPLs, the Euros, Olympics, they're all now global sporting events, global in size and nature and global in reach. Now that has all come about in the last 20 years because of technology. the growth of technology, particularly in the digital production and broadcast space. It's enabled the pictures and the fan engagement tools to take the game or the sporting games, codes, events throughout the world. And that technology has driven that. Without technology in a cost-effective way, the sports world would be what it was 30 years ago. It would not be global as it is today. We sit in Melbourne where I am and we watch the EPL in my household. We watch the American sports live. We watch the IPL live. We wouldn't have done that 30 years ago. At best, we might have got a 30-minute highlight program cut and delivered a week later on the EPL. Now it's live every match how it happens, as it happens. That's technology that's done that. So we need to understand that the global sporting industry and events have grown and evolved because of technology. Technology specifically in relation to production and broadcast and fan engagement. And the reducing cost in that technology is certainly been a big enabler today for that to occur. Just want to talk a little bit about workforce people's the sports industry. So the global the salaries paid in the global sports industry by the end of this year is going to be $750 billion a year. There's currently roughly 15 million people employed in the sports industry globally. Now that varies up and down significantly depending on what major events are occurring in any one particular year. If you work that out, it's roughly $50,000 per employee is being paid in the sports industry. So there's a growing professional workforce in the sports industry. We're seeing it grow at a roughly at a rate of about 8% outside the spikes of Olympic Games and other major events. So it's only going to continue to grow. And I'll talk a little bit about what that growth is about later. What we're also finding is the sports industry is becoming very, very specialised. Specialised not just from a technology perspective, but from a range of areas. So if I go back 30 years when I started, most of the people that I worked with at that particular time hadn't started as I had done qualifications in sports management. What they'd done, they were either teachers, lawyers, occasional bankers, marketing and communication experts. They sort of started the principle of working in sporting organisations. So there wasn't anyone who even thought about technology at that stage. That evolved, and about 10 years later, the sports industry started to employ accountants in-house, lawyers in-house, marketing managers, communication managers. So we started to specialise, probably 20 years ago, roughly 20 years in relation to the sports industry. Now that specialisation has continued to today, where we're starting to see more and more in the last 5 years, CTOs appointed by sporting organisations. We're seeing data analysts. We're seeing people that look at data insights to fan engagement, performance. So the industry is becoming more and more professionalised in the last 5 years, mainly in relation to technology-specific roles. And we're going to see that grow and grow and grow more from a sports federation's perspective moving forward. So that's sort of where the global sports industry is at the moment. Now, I just want to touch on how, again, from a non-tech person's perspective, how I see technology in sport. The way I see it is that technology is anything that helps us interact with people in relation to the game of sport. That's one aspect of it. So whether that's in officiating, so the VAR or DRS as you know in cricket, whether that's in broadcast, whether that's in fan engagement, whether that's in any digitalisation, any aspect of interaction between two people in relation to technologies, that is one aspect that I work in with technology in sport. The other aspect that we see technology used in sport is about performance. Now, whether that's talent identification, injury management, match day planning, individual play planning, any of those performance analytics. So human interaction of any sorts in relation to the sport and performance. That's how I, from a layman's perspective, and most other sporting organisations will see technology in sport. Look, there's a number of different types of technologies that are increasing emerging in the sports industry, and they're playing a crucial role, right, in growing and developing the game sport, and it will continue to do that. And I'm not going to go into the detail of these. You know, technology such as data and analytics, AI, wearables, virtual reality, machine learning, computer vision, predictive modeling. We're seeing that more and more, particularly in cricket, blockchain. A number of these technologies are being used and emerging in the sport, and that's great. And I think there'll be more over time. But what I'm really, as a sports person and a sports manager, what I'm interested in, not those, because I don't understand those. You guys do. What I want to know, right, is how are those technologies going to be used in sport? So how can they help me as a sport grow, and how can we help evolve and grow and develop sports? So I sort of see things such as, you know, officiating. We're seeing more and more technologies in officiating, in performance, in talent identification. And we've probably all seen the show. That was years ago. We're seeing more and more of that. Game planning. We've seen the analysts sitting at the side of the game, working out what the next plan is and how we're going to play bowl the next over in cricket, how we're going to change tactics in a football match, whether that's soccer, AFL, NFL. Through fan engagements, data insights, we're using technology, injury management through gaming and esports, and I'll talk a bit about that with my role at Big Ant Studios, through event management, through community growth, through broadcast, through viewer experience. And what that is all doing, it's adding to the commercialisation of the sport. Now, I just want to touch on two real experiences of mine in relation to technology and the use of technology in relation to sport and cricket, which is my background. The first one's in relation to officiating. Is everyone aware of VAR football? Everyone? Yeah? Is everyone aware of the DRS for cricket? Probably some of you are, probably some are. So DRS is a decision review system. So it's technology that's used to help officials make decisions in the game of cricket. DRS was introduced to cricket way back in 2005, years before most other sports decided to think about using technology from an officiating perspective. I was sitting at ISACE in my role as commercial director at that stage. I worked very closely with the cricket director, a guy by the name of David Richardson, who played cricket for South Africa. And he was approached by a company called Hawkeye, which you all would have probably heard because you've heard about them in tennis. He was approached by them to say, look, we've got this technology that we're using in broadcast that shows how the officials make a lot of mistakes. It basically shows up every mistake an official makes because it tracks the ball using various different technologies. And we believe that you should actually use this form of technology in your decision-making process for making a decision, an umpire making a decision in a game of cricket. Now, our challenge was that it came out, this Hawkeye was used in broadcast. It showed every incorrect decision made by a cricket umpire. And that was an issue for us at the time because we couldn't stop the broadcast doing it. Technology had taken that leap and had gone ahead with it on the understanding that this supposedly was right and correct the information that was relaying. So we sat there at the ICC thinking, well, what do we do? How do we bring in this technology to help us with officiating? This is way back in sort of 2003, 2004. Firstly, we didn't know how to do it. And secondly, we didn't know if it was accurate or not. And we had no process to understand. We were not far from technology experts. We had no process at all to understand whether it was accurate or not. We had to rely on the people that were selling us the service that was telling us it worked. You need to use this to make decisions because it actually works. We had no forum, no mechanism to decide. There wasn't one. We touched into a professor at MIT at the time who gave us a little bit of advice, but nothing solid. So we took a hunch and we went with it. We later found out that Hawkeye has a 10% variance. And if you understand cricket, 10% is a significant variance in a decision being out or not out. But we went with it. So no process in place to analyse, to review, to consider this technology, the great technology that come before us. But we went with it and we used it officiating in test matches, international matches, all throughout the world. And it took us from 2005, where we constantly used it, through to 2015, before we actually got it right. It's probably in about 2015 that the use of technology, the sporting body understood what the technology could really do and how best to use it. The technology people kept throwing ideas at us of new things it could do, but we didn't know how to use it. We didn't know how to bring it into the sport. We didn't know whether it was irrelevant. We sit today, ICC sits today, and it does still not have a body that can consider technologies to be utilised in the game of cricket. So you could come to ICC with a great idea, great concept, great piece of technology, which could really help and assist grow the game of cricket, but there's no actual way of considering its appropriateness for the sport and its accuracy. And I think that's one of the big challenges sporting federations face, technology companies face, and how we need to work to collaborate to bring them together to understand the technology that's being driven and created that could potentially assist the development of the growth of the game, how the game could actually analyse it, review it before it actually utilise it. I think that's one big challenge that the industry currently faces. The other example I wanted to use is in relation to community sport and growth. Part of my role at Deakin University, I have to review and analyse the entire sports program. We have a development aspect at Deakin University, some professors that operate in the development space. And as part of this role, I went into them and I sat with them and I said, look, talk to me about technology and how it's used in the growth at a community level in sport. And the response was, well, it isn't. There isn't technology used in the growth of community sport at any level. And they were lecturing and teaching students that this was the fact. There was no technology used. It's all about doing this, coaches and facilities and all these different things. But the reality is, when I said to them, have you seen some of the great apps that are being created by technology companies that actually basically are community-based sports apps that enable sport to be managed, enable sport to people to register to play, to when to turn up, to not to turn up. Apps such as Spond. Does anyone know Spond as an app? No? No? Well, I strongly suggest you all go, if you don't have kids, or if you do have kids that play sport, you should know Spond. If you don't, go and have a look at Spond, S-P-O-N-D. It's a great piece of technology that's community-based, that's working exceptionally well. The other use of technology that I wanted to touch on by sport, which I think is fantastic, brilliant, is a company that I got involved in and sort of started to help and advise, Interact Sport. They have a product called Frogbox. Has anyone heard of Frogbox? No. So Frogbox is a really simple one camera setup that records cricket and enables cricket clubs at community level to push out live vision of their matches throughout the world on their website or YouTube channel or Facebook page. Very low cost, very simple, operates through a SIM card. It's a group of guys in Australia that are doing some fantastic things that are enabling community sport through technology to be accessible to grandparents, to parents, to people all throughout the world. And again, it's another great example of technology, how technology's enabled sport and community sport to grow and develop. Now, I want to talk about one of the real challenges that the sports industry is facing with this immersion of technology within the sports industry. And it's specifically in relation to how you train and upskill people working in the sports industry. So, you know, if we look at some of the skill sets that currently are required in the tech space, working within sport, people like data scientists, engineers, AI experts, computer vision experts, software developers, they're the skill sets that that we need to work in the sports technology space. But we also need competencies such as strategic thinkers, people that are creative, people that have got communication skills and management skills. We need people with those skills, those competencies, but also to have a deep understanding of the sports industry. Very challenging to find people that actually fit that model. One of the companies that I advise, and one of my good friends, a guy by the name of Ross Simons, who I believe is one of the leaders in sports tech throughout the world, is the founder of a company called Big Ant Studios. Big Ant Studios is a company that produces video console games. They produce more sports video console games than any other company in the world. So you have your EAs that do FIFA and your 2Ks that do basketball, but Big Ant produce an AFL game, they produce a tennis game, a rugby game, a horse racing game, an NRL game, a cricket game, and they have literally hundreds of people based in their studios, their offices in Melbourne. And Ross's biggest issue is talent. Can't find people. He cannot find people that fit these particular skill sets with a sport understanding. So what does he do? Because he only does sport, doesn't do anything else but sport. Does he employ people that are skilled in the engineering, the AI, the data science perspective, that don't have some of the management skills and don't understand sport? Or does he employ sports people that don't have the other skills and train them up the other way? It's a real issue that the industry is facing. So he currently has at least 100 positions available that he can't fill with the right people in the sports tech space at this particular stage. And it's a real challenge, not just for him, but for a lot of other companies throughout the world. So to find people that are skilled and educated in these spaces, and universities have got a role to play in this, which I'll talk about. So I just want to talk about education and training. So where I see this big gap, which I've just highlighted, I think universities have a role in creating talent to work in this particular space. So what we've seen over 30 years ago, Deakin was the pioneer setting up an undergraduate and postgraduate in sports management and sports science. Number of universities followed. So it's Loughborough, the US universities, universities here in France, and other universities throughout the world are starting to establish more and more sports management undergraduate and postgraduate qualifications. What we're also seeing is, you're fully aware, there's a huge number of universities offering tech-based qualifications throughout the world, and that's not going to change as the tech industry grows. What we don't have, though, or a very, very limited way, a number of academic institutes offering sport technology specific qualifications. And that in itself is the real challenge. And what I see at Deakin University, particularly in our master's program, so a lot of our master's program students come out of India. Most of those students, and there's big numbers, right, are engineers. So we're getting all these people with engineering qualifications and qualifications in the tech space that are coming across and doing a postgrad masters in sports management. And they're doing that because there's nothing really there that enables them to do both tech and sport at the same time. So they're having to do one area of qualification and then go into another space into another area. And that's why we're seeing so many engineers and AI specialists come out of Deakin into to this space. Now, another area, and I know I don't want to take too much of your time, but based on my experience, one of the challenges that the industry has is you've got the sports industry doing what it does, you've got the tech industry doing what it does, and you've got the academic industry doing what it does. They don't meet. None of them collaborate, work together to understand what each other needs. What should the universities, how should they be producing talent to meet the needs of the sports industry and also the sports tech industry? What sport tech should be produced by you experts that could be used by the sports industry? There's very minimal collaboration between the three parties. Part of my role at Deakin is to actually bring the bodies together to form partnerships between Deakin University, between sporting federations and tech companies, so that Deakin is actually producing talent, right, that meets the needs of the industries. The other challenge that we need to make certain is that the tech space understands the challenge and needs of the sports industry. I'm certain over the course of the next 2 days, there'll be some fantastic papers delivered about tech and sport and what can be done. But I asked you the question, does the industry actually need it or want it? And are they capable of considering it? And I think that's probably the biggest issue. The issue is not the fact that your experts can produce great technologies that will really support the sport, but how do the industry understand how to use it and make it viable? So I think there's loads of work to be done in the collaboration perspective. Now, look, from a careers perspective, there is literally hundreds of jobs advertised in the sports technology space available. Global Sports Jobs, who I've advised for a number of years, which is a tech company. It's a tech platform that sporting organisations post their jobs on. 50% of their jobs, roughly 50%, have a tech aspect to it. The roles are advertised mainly in the data science, performance space, data analytics, fan engagement space, and the AI space. So that's only going to increase and increase and increase moving forward. Part of the reason there's so many of these roles available is because people aren't trained by the universities to work in that space. There's no actual qualification to meet that. So I've mentioned challenges. Look, I think the challenges that we face is this collaboration. I think we also we're faced with this significant lack of talent that is qualified in the space of both sport and technology, and therefore we're not able to meet the solution. We're not able to meet the demands and requirements of the sport tech industry. And the solution, I think, which Deakin is doing is has started to do, is very much in infancy, is to engage people like myself that are sports industries experts, right? That also understand, to a lesser extent, the academic world, but also understand the sports tech, but to bring them together to ensure that universities are creating and producing the talent that make your needs as tech experts in the sports space, but also sports management experts. And I think there's a long way to go with that. Part of the other role that I've undertaken at Deakin is to do this audit of all the courses within the sports from a tech perspective. So we're trying to bring everything that we offer at Deakin up to speed from a technology perspective. I think if we can start to collaborate and work together, I think sports world will be a better place, and all these great people that produce some great technologies for sport will actually start to get utilised and recognised more in the sports industry. That's all I have. Thank you.